Last week we talked about the 15-second miracle, and Mark talks about basically, last week we talked a lot about taking responsibility, because if we don't do that first, you're never going to get into a 15-second miracle. Once we take that charge of trying to take every responsibility that we can about ourselves, gives us the power and gives us the integrations to actually have these 15-second miracles. And this is another way of getting them too, is knowing these 10 insights that Marx talks about. And I'm going to cover the first one, which is know your world. He says here basically, once he became an integrated thinker, more and more he got all these insights and they all came together in his mind. But he said, as time passed, I realized I now clearly understood the world around me. Now just take that for a second. He understood the world around him. How many of us can say that? And really understand it. And that's what so he hits us right away about understanding the world around us. And he says, I also understand everything that has ever happened to me. So now he's aware of the world around him, and he's aware of his own being, basically, and everything that has happened to him. The integrated thinker figures everything out, and I think that's such a great little sentence there. The integrated thinker figures everything out. Never was there a truer statement than that, because once you start having integrations and you keep having them and you keep having them, you can sit there and say, you can figure out anything that you want to figure out. And this is the point that you want to reach, the point of spontaneous insights, in order to gain omniscient knowledge and God-like power in your life. This is where it starts. This is where everything starts to come together. Once we take that responsibility, all right, like basically you bought these books, and we spend a lot of money on these books. But have you taken responsibility to read them, to be on these calls, to understand it, and to take this knowledge and put it into action? That's the question. That's what we must do. We'll take the responsibility of knowing this information, because that's going to change your life. So he says, you have to get, he says here that observing the world around me was like looking back in history with hindsight, which is that 20/20 vision, with a much broader understanding of things because of my integrated thinking. I became the wise one. All right, when we have 20/20 vision looking backwards in our past, and this integration of looking forward with 20/20 vision, now we have the best of both. So after looking through hindsight at the world around me, I finally knew why we never came close to our youthful expectations of wealth, love, and happiness. Simply stated, we never stood a chance under the ruling class. This was a professional revelation to me, for just that knowledge alone released me from being a quiet prisoner of self-disappointment. And how many times have we felt self-disappointment? Many times in our life. And we still do now at points. These are the things that stop once we start looking in the past with 20/20 hindsight, and then that 20/20 vision in the future. He says, but looking back, I asked, why did we fail at our dreams? And the answer was not difficult. He says, we failed because we were in a society in which we could not win. And this is pretty early on in his writings, and he's telling us it's not our fault. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't take responsibility for our life from here on in, but we don't have to beat ourselves up anymore about why we didn't win in the past. This whole anti-civilization is stacked against us. And the blame rests squarely on our leaders. The solution was simple. The new leaders of the 12 Visions world will make this society one in which we cannot fail. So we're going to go from a system that's just setting us up to fail to a system that it's impossible to fail. And again, it's just another example of the difference between the AC world, and somebody called me up this week, I haven't gotten back to him yet. What does the AC mean? Anti-civilization. And that is 100% different than the C of U, which is the civilization of the universe. But by the way, my definition of failure was not becoming the person you always dreamed of, the person you were meant to be, the person living his or her finite essence. And that's what he considers a failure. Not that you tried something and didn't make it, or not that you did this and that, is that we are not living our finite essence. And we talked about that a lot last week also. He says, but that is the one thing, because if we could live our essence, everyone would be deeply happy. That goes back to Tim's song, happy. Now, our future leaders make the society one in which we cannot fail, meaning every ordinary person will enjoy the gifts of profound security, millionaire wealth, nearly perfect dreams, health, a dream career, a dream lover, and superior intelligence. Ooh. That's a lot of promise there, but it all can't happen. Our future leaders will simply sink the BOAT, the boat. All right? And, what I did forget, though, this is in NeoThink One Key book, and I started on page, I just sort of, I was going to pass before, on page 431. So if you want to follow along there, you can. But the boat, which means the burden on advancing technology, when we sink that boat of freeloaders, many millions of NeoThink geniuses will rise and technologies will soar. Our wealth will soar as prices fall, free fall. Burden on advancing technologies. And I've talked about this over the past few years. We have all this technology out there, but how much of it is really for us? How much of it is making our lives really better? Look at all of the technology that's used against us. The privacy issue. We have no privacy left in this world. They know every little thing that we do anymore, no matter how careful we are. They're always spying on us. There's cameras everywhere. There's drones. All this technology, and that's not helping us. So imagine a society where the advancing technology is for people. It's for living. It's for being happy. It's for the preciousness of life. Everything that we want to have in our lives will be right there for us. But we were born in a no-win world. And first he says, where did everything go wrong? And I know I came here wanting to find out why the world was the way it was. And it was one of the great benefits of learning this is to figure out why the world is the way it is and why we all have failed. All right, but think back to your earliest memories. Most people's earliest memories center around the time that they started school. And little did we know that your potential in life was already limited by the time you spent your first day in school. Okay? Now we know that, all right? The school system is set up for one thing, for us to fit into society. That is it. It's not to educate us. It's not to make us smarter. It's just for us to fit in the way that they want us to fit in. So a common misconception is that your potential in life comes from your education. But actually, education provided you with the thinking tools and knowledge to fulfill whatever potential you had left. but your potential self was dead before your education began. Now, do you understand that? Education provided you with the thinking, tools, and knowledge to fulfill whatever potential you had left. So by the time that you're hitting the high school years and then college, your potential is not what it was when you were 6 years old. So whatever potential you have left, the education system might help you somewhat. So now let's get to the bottom of exactly what determines your potential. The human mind of average intelligence has enormous capacity. All right, just of average intelligence. We have all heard stories such as, had we continued the learning curve experience as toddlers, we would speak many languages fluently, know advanced physics and mathematics. All of that could have happened if our learning curve was still there by the time they were out of school. But if man's mind is capable of such great things, what stops us? Our geometrical learning curve collapsed. In fact, our learning curves took their biggest drops right after our toddler years, right before entering school. It's a scary thing. They have done that to every human being who has walked this earth. But what caused the geometrical learning curves to begin with? Actually, the simple answer is deep-rooted motivation. And this all makes sense when you start to put all these pieces together. As an infant and a toddler, you were extremely motivated to learn, to talk, and become a conceptual conscious being. You felt powerful social pressures, if not survival pressures, to learn. And we did. That's why the mind was always working for us. Thank goodness we are God men when we are 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. So we can learn everything that we have to learn to survive, to live. With our superior minds, we were born to learn. That explains why toddlers are the happiest people alive in our anti-civilization. And they are. They're being themselves. They're learning at a almost like the speed of light. And that's why. So imagine if we felt that way today and every day of our lives. Then something happens to us around 6 or 7 years of age. After you master language and become a conceptual conscious being, your learning curve collapsed. It just collapsed. That happens because your deep-rooted motivational drive collapsed. From now to successfully being part of a society no longer dependent on the geometrical learning curve. We don't have to rely on that anymore because we're just being told now that we just have to fit in, and everybody's the same, and everybody's going to learn the same things, no matter if you want to learn it or not. And our learning curve goes down. So imagine if that geometrical learning curve still existed in adults. Imagine if we still had that. But now it's coming back to us because of neothink. I know mine did. I know Karen's did. I know a lot of us on the call. That learning curve is back. It's coming back. So imagine if we just kept it a whole life. The loss of the learning curve among the entire human race was never meant to be. Man was meant to forever rapidly learn. You were the person you were meant to be for only the first few years of your life. And that's our happiest years. So think about this. Deep-rooted resignation replaced your deep-rooted motivation. Now back to the question. What really determines your potential? And that is your deep-rooted motivation, motivational drive in life. the motivational drive you once had and were meant to keep, your potential equals your mind's incredible capacity. By the time you enter school, your potential was a fraction of your mind's capability. Motivational increasingly replaced by resignation, dooming you to fail at your most important dreams. So to begin answering the question, why did we fail at our dreams in this anti-civilization? It all goes back before your earliest memories as you learn resignation from the world around you. But that will change in tomorrow's 12 Visions world. And it will. Our learning curves will return and never collapse. You will always look forward to learning every day. But we are schooled in a no-win world. And if you don't believe that this is a no-win world, then especially in these last few months, in the sea of you, that would never happen. We would never have viruses like this. We would never have anything like this. This is getting so out of control, it's ridiculous. But when you started school, you probably had dreams such as becoming rich, famous, in short, becoming someone very important who would make a difference. Because at that age, we didn't know that we could fail. We just thought that we were going to be successful all our lives. That's the way that we felt. That's why we were happy. But then life grows increasingly frustrating because you do not have the potential to achieve your dreams. Education was how you acquire thinking, tools, and knowledge. The better the education, the more you could fulfill your limited potential. And again, once we get into school, our potential is very limited because our minds are not limitless anymore. Unfortunately, back when you went to school, public education has already went down so much that it was just ineffective. But if you or your parents were to personally talk to your teachers, those educators were usually very dedicated to educating children. Teachers were generally into their jobs and competent at their job they were given to do. And there precisely was the problem. The jobs that they were given to do. It changed. Early, about 100 years ago or so, education lost its way. Political leaders and school board leaders lost their understanding of the very heart of education. And that's when when the government really took over the education system back in the 1910s, that's when this all went downhill. And it's been going downhill ever since. Between the public schools, the unions, with pressure from federal government, has given our teachers another job, to help the children learn from each other. Now that's all fine and well if you don't want your kids to be successful. Teachers have the knowledge. Why can't they just teach? Why can't they give lectures like Miss Annabelle gave lectures to her students? Okay? But they gave the education over to the kids. And that has worked really well. So, the teachers were given the wrong job. The teacher's right job is not to make children socially integrate or to make them culturally aware. The teacher's right job was to teach. Yes, the old-fashioned lecture method. And he says here, all the teachers have the knowledge, the children do not. And that's the problem. I know if I would have been a teacher, I wouldn't have made it to my 30s. Because I know, knowing me, I wouldn't have followed the curriculum that they tell you to teach by. But these teachers are forced, basically, to teach what's in these books, and these books are so, it's like a fantasy. And they just don't have anything the unions are so strong that they have to follow what they're taught. But a vital part of a teacher's job of pouring knowledge into children's minds yet entirely lost by the time you attended school, was equipping our children with the most powerful thinking method. That thinking method was conceptual thinking, which leads to integrated thinking. All right? Conceptual thinking. That's why we must think in pictures. Conceptual, you can see it. And every time that you see something, your subconscious mind doesn't know that's not, that's just fantasy now. It thinks that you're really doing these things. So only through bringing together the scattered fragments of facts and figures into integrated concepts could children retain and build knowledge like a puzzle. Excuse me. While lecturing knowledge, teachers should have pulled together the many pieces of knowledge into integrated concepts to enable themselves to pour much more knowledge, retainable knowledge, into children's mind. And put them into common denominators, into a few powerful, timeless concepts. Okay? For example, if you take history, and what do they teach us about history? You know, well, we had World War I, and we had World War II, and we had the Korean War, and we had the Vietnam War, and all they talk about is the dates that these wars were, and they give a little history of what caused the war, you know, but not a lot. But imagine if they took all the wars just of this country, let's say, and compare them to each other with common denominators. Now, you take a kid, what's the first grade that they start teaching history? Was it like 5th or 6th grade maybe? I don't know. It's been so long since I've been in school, but I would think about 5th or 6th grade, you start getting some history lessons. I know in high school you do. But imagine teaching a child the common denominators between wars. And I don't care which war that you compare it with. You could take the wars of America as opposed to the wars in Europe, as opposed to wars in South America. It doesn't matter. They all have common denominators. So why would we ever fight another war? That's what the kids will start to think. But we can't have that. We can't have kids thinking like that. Because the war machine makes us a lot of money. We have to have wars. Keeps the economy going. And we're just a bigger and better country than everybody else, and they should be all like us. And you know, it goes on and on and on. But as individual citizens here, we don't start the wars. No single citizen in any country ever started a war. But yet we have to fight them. And yet we die from them. It's just, but this is what's going on. The prosperity and progress of each culture and economy was directly related to that country's degree of freedom from the boat of freeloaders. Now the child would have quickly begun linking together unforgettable conceptual understandings instead of memorizing forgettable places, spaces, and other forgivable facts. A child would have used the common denominator of freedom to snap together the puzzle pieces, the prosperous countries throughout the world, into one crystal clear picture puzzle. Prosperity and wealth come from sinking the boat of freeloaders. That's how we start to think as young adults. That's how we stop this craziness that we are having day in and day out in this world. Not faulting the teachers, but faulting the leaders of the no-win society. Children graduate without the knowledge of thinking tools to fulfill the limited potential that they did have. Again, sinking the boat and its control over our schools sometime in the 21st century will bring teachers back to their proper jobs to teach. Then children will reach their breathtaking potential. It's all right there. I mean, that's why. I mean, that explains why the world gets worse every day. We basically, it's like we suck out our kids' brains by the time they're 4 or 5 years old. Just suck the life right out of them. We did it to our kids, our parents did it to us, and the society did it to us. And, you know, parents will say, you know, son, you can be anything you want. But no, we can't. Unless we're this exceptional person on our own. And yes, a few people break out, and you have these great inventors, and they make great inventions for us, and it makes us, and it makes our lives better. But out of all the billions of people on this planet, imagine if we were all geniuses like that, instead of just a few. Think of what this world would be like if we were all geniuses. Because we are. We just don't know it. A lot of us has no confidence, or we think we're dumb, or we think we're not that smart, you know, and we can't put these puzzles together. And then we give up so easily. If you came here and you were looking to change and you were looking to have a better life, and if you never had success prior to this, understand just a couple things. Number one, it wasn't your fault. So take that guilt off your shoulders. Now, take this information that we learned here at NeoThink and study the hell out of it. And come to these calls and read these books and take that responsibility that you're going to learn it. And you're going to come out the other end someone that you never thought that you could ever be, ever in your life. Because if you don't make it here, you just didn't try hard enough. But these are the reasons why. I mean, they go into detail here. Mark tells us it's not your fault. When I first read that, I'm thinking, he's just passing the buck. But then the more I read, the more it just made sense to me. And I'm thinking, you know what? Damn, he's right. And I start feeling better about myself already. That it wasn't my fault. But then you can't keep that attitude that, well, geez, every time I fail in the future, it's not going to be my fault. No. Because you got to take responsibility now. Now you know this knowledge. So now you know that you have to start moving forward. But now they teach us how to do that. He just doesn't leave us, you know. No, he tells us in detail throughout all of the writings how for us to be better people. How do we start learning this? And then I'm just going to skip here a little bit. He says, as you read this today, there are three forces hold you down from ever soaring. Okay? Number one, your potential. That deep-rooted motivational drive is resigned early on. Two, your mode of thinking was scrambled during education. And three, society's opportunities vanished long ago because of the vote of freeloaders. So, first, your potential. Your deep-rooted motivational drive is gone. Every day proves that. For if you still had that deep-rooted motivational drive, then you, as you did as a child, you would spend energy learning and absorbing knowledge towards your success every day, and you will love it. Energized by financial rewards, your evenings would be filled with thinking and rethinking your value creation. We have a chance now, for the first time in our lives, to be ourselves. And it's a great feeling to be myself. Because we all went through life being somebody else. Look at all the energy that took out of us. It's hard to be someone else. And yet, 99.9% of the people out there are being something else. They don't even know who they are. They don't even think about it. But the second thing is your mode of thinking was scrambled during your education, and we went through all that. Specialized thinking works by memory and repetition and blocks you from integrating and building knowledge, which is crucial in order to create money-making opportunities. Specialization thinking puts you in a following mode, merely following what you are told to do, following the set responsibilities given to you at work, trapping you in a routine rut. And how many of you who are still working are in that routine rut? So now, how are you going to change it? Well, here's the directions right here. Here's the recipe. And then third, society's opportunities have all vanished because of the vote. Suppresses businesses and science. Talk about businesses and science now. Wow. Are we going downhill there? We're going downhill faster than an avalanche coming down the hill. So it's regulations, legislation, and litigation make growth in America limited, costly, and risky. Without such burdens, lucrative opportunities would be everywhere for everyone. But today, you must create your own opportunities through integrated thinking and neo-think. So what is the way out of this lifelong trap? Your way out comes at two levels. By first, the easiest way out is to sink the boat. That will happen sometime in the first half of the 21st century, and it better. Before then, you can make strides on your own by learning integrated thinking as taught in the first two Neo-Think manuscripts. Okay, I'm going to stop there. It's just, read this over again. It's a valuable lesson of understanding why we couldn't be successful, why most people aren't, and why we don't know how to think. And they go into detail why. And it makes perfect sense because that's what's happening. He's not bashing the government for no reason. He's not bashing the education system for no reason. It's all controlled. And I was going to do an article today, but I changed my mind because I thought this was so important. And it was about how the press puts out like crisis of the now, okay? And when like when 9/11 happened, all right? How many times we see the planes going into the towers? I mean, over and over for what, a year at least, if not more? Because that was the crisis of the now. And now we have, I mean, you watch the news now, I mean, 95% of it is about this virus. That's the crisis of the now. So we get sucked into it, and then we can't think on our own, and there's so much going on about this because we know it was staged. I would be shocked if it comes out that it wasn't staged. This, so they have a whole bunch of articles, and they're calling it planetemic because it was all planned. But that's the crisis of the now. And I didn't want to really I'd rather have an upbeat thing here today about how we can overcome us, to be able to sink the boat, to become independent thinkers, integrated thinkers, and to find our essence. And the happiness that brings to you. And you'll never want to stop learning again. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Karen.